Chosen ones, the moment you escaped, the curse took root. A venomous promise etched into every crumbling street and shadowed alleyway. This wasn't just hatred. This was a collective fury that burned beyond reason, beyond mercy. Surviving meant making an entire city your enemy. The town seethed with a rage that defied logic. Your survival was an insult, a violation of its most sacred unwritten law. Windows became watchful eyes. Sidewalks trembled with murderous intent. Every breath you took was a crime. Every step a challenge to a darkness that refused to let go. You made it out, and now the city would never forgive. They tried to kill you in plain sight, but called it healing, laced their rituals in false light, baptized you in humiliation, dressed their daggers as concern. You felt it, didn't you? The confusion spells, the whispers that made you doubt your own name. They worked in circles, cloaked in smiles. Every prayer they offered was a curse in disguise, every embrace a siphon. They didn't just want your body, they wanted your identity to collapse into theirs, for your voice to stutter, for your will to fracture. What they did wasn't just spiritual, it was surgical. They wanted to cut your soul out and stitch in silence. This wasn't just envy, it was warfare. You were the altar. They brought you forward thinking you'd be the perfect lamb, isolated, questioning, soft. They sent you through humiliation rituals so twisted they hoped you'd break in secret. HIV, AIDS energy, rotting from the inside, curses meant to make you implode. Confusion spells that rewrote your reflection. They poured root work into your food, into your clothing, into your dreams. They sent you fake love, empty hands full of poison. You were supposed to unravel slowly, publicly, shamefully. But then, everything stopped. The divine said, access denied. Their spells clashed with a power they couldn't decode. They threw everything at you and watched it recoil. You didn't just survive, you reversed the current. They tried to poison your heart, and yours stayed whole. They tried to shut your voice, but yours grew louder. They tried to make you forget who you were, but their rituals only reminded you. Your ancestors stood tall. Their bones refused to betray you. They pulled you out of every pit, shattered every illusion, burned every mask. When they came for your crown, the divine cloaked you in thunder. Your lineage said, not this one. Everything they built fell apart. Every altar they raised in your name cracked. Every mirror shattered. Every whispered curse returned to sender with interest. They tried to sacrifice you and failed. It wasn't one person. It was never just one. It was a network, woven in silence, stitched with familiarity. Old friends who suddenly went cold. Family members who started looking at you like a stranger. Exes who showed up with false apologies and dark intentions. Frenemies who claimed to just be checking in. They weren't isolated incidents. They were coordinated triggers. The city itself was a spiritual trap. Every handshake a hex. Every hug a data mine. They were collecting pieces of you to tear you apart methodically. The collective conspiracy ran deeper than gossip or malice. These weren't people anymore. They were vessels. Something ancient, wounded and bitter moved through them. They called themselves concerned, but they were executioners hiding behind empathy. They sat in circles, muttering prayers to gods they didn't understand. They cast spells wrapped in Bible verses. They masked jealousy as protection. This was never about helping you ascend. It was about dragging you back into the pit they called home. You thought you were walking on neutral ground, but the city was marked. Their rituals weren't just private. They were imprinted into the soil. Every betrayal left residue. Every lie left a scar. The sidewalks carry the echoes of spells. The buildings are soaked in regret. The land itself grieves because of what they did to you on it. It mourns the light they tried to extinguish. You were meant to die there, not just physically, but spiritually. The town was designed to be your grave. But now, The grave has turned on its makers. The city, once your cage, has become their prison. The very land they cursed is cursing them back. Their secrets won't stay buried. Their whispers won't stay hidden. The mask of normalcy is slipping, and underneath is rot, spiritual decay that no amount of denial can cleanse. They look at each other with suspicion now. They can feel the ground rejecting them. The energy is thick with guilt, shame, and backlash. You escaped, and in doing so you damned their ritual. You exposed the spell, not with your words but with your deliverance. And now the shadow they once sent after you has turned inward. They are locked in the darkness they conjured. You didn't bow. That was your crime. You didn't play dumb. You didn't join the coven. You didn't kiss the ring of fake leaders whose only power came from manipulation. You didn't wear their mask, repeat their mantras, or trade your truth for approval. They offered you control, disguised as community, and you refused. That refusal burned louder than any speech. You didn't have to say much. Just standing in your light was enough. You became a mirror, and when they looked into you, they saw what they'd lost: soul, faith, purpose. That's why they hated you. Your light didn't flatter their shadows, it exposed them, and exposure was their deepest fear. They built their power on illusions, titles, trauma bonds, silent agreements. But your authenticity disrupted everything. You didn't compete, you just existed, and that was unforgivable. Because you weren't supposed to survive, let alone thrive. You were supposed to be their warning, their example of what happens when you resist. Instead, you became the proof that freedom is possible. They whispered, "Who do they think they are?" But it wasn't a question, it was a curse. They cursed you with their disbelief, their bitterness, their envy, because you didn't crash when they tried to wreck you. You didn't beg for crumbs when they starved you of love. You didn't come crawling back to ask for forgiveness for simply existing. You walked away and stayed gone. You became the story they tried to bury, the name they can't stop mentioning. What made you dangerous wasn't your defiance, it was your peace. They couldn't figure out how you kept standing, how you kept smiling, how you kept healing. They sent storms and you built boats. They threw fire and you became rain. You were supposed to need them, but you learned to need nothing but the divine, and in doing so, you revealed how fragile their power truly was. They turned on you because you were the reminder, the one they couldn't erase, the one who got away, and every time they see you shining, they are forced to confront the lie they made peace with. You didn't rebel. You remembered who you were. That's why they made you the enemy. I must interrupt this transmission for just a moment. Are you really chosen? Prove it. It's easy to watch videos about chosen ones. It's another thing entirely to put yourself to the test. When I confronted the Archons beyond our reality, they made one thing clear. True chosen ones are rare. They laughed at the thought of us finding each other. Yet here you are, watching this message. The Obsidian inner order isn't for everyone claiming to be awakened. We're the real ones, those who've seen beyond the veil, felt the call, and carry the unmistakable frequency. But are you truly one of us? I have given you everything I've got, and I'm digging deeper to bring you even more. Don't just consume content from the sidelines. Real chosen ones take action. Share your story on our weekly group call. Get a revealing tarot reading from our resident card reader. Discover if your experiences align with the authentic signs. The Archons fear nothing more than chosen ones recognizing each other. When we connect, our frequencies amplify and create a force they cannot stop. That's why we're going to be live streaming to the entire Astral Atom network to find every last one of us. Click the link in the description below now. It's time to stop wondering and confirm what you already suspect. Are you merely interested in awakening, or are you truly chosen? Prove it. Join us. The verification you seek awaits with the Obsidian inner order. They lurk in silence, but it's not quiet. It's desperate. They spy through fake accounts, mutual connections, energy readings. They send messengers masked as support. They want updates, even if it's just to confirm their failure. They need to know why their curses backfired, why you look lighter, why karma's clock struck them instead. The spell work didn't just fail, it returned with vengeance. They thought they'd watch you wither. Instead, they're watching themselves fall apart. Their humiliation plot, oh, it was intricate. You were meant to be the town joke, the failure they whispered about with laughter behind closed doors. They crafted your downfall in detail, rehearsed the mockery, timed the public shame. But something shifted. The spell flipped, and now they're the ones hiding. Their own coven talks about them. Their own spirits are restless. Their names are the ones whispered with pity. The joke collapsed, and karma is writing new punchlines, with their faces on the stage. The irony is, they still watch hoping for a crack. They think if they stare long enough, your glow will dim. But it only grows stronger. And the more they fixate, the more cursed they become. Your silence is louder than any clapback. Your existence is a sermon they can't avoid. And in their obsession, they've become haunted, not by what you did, but by what they couldn't do to you. They're not over you. They can't be. Because your survival wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. You became the one thing they fear most, undeniable. Every glance they send your way is soaked in shame. They're still watching. But you're untouchable. They knew your mind was strong. They knew your spirit was protected. So they went after your heart. That was the true target. They whispered sweet spells disguised as affection, sent you lovers who were really shadows, offered friendships dipped in honey and poison. They didn't need to kill your body. They needed to corrupt your softness, because a hardened heart can't hear divinity. And if they could shut down your heart, they believed they could sever your connection to truth. That was the plan. Emotional assassination. But love spells failed. Trauma spells shattered before impact. The fake friendships, they exposed themselves like rotting fruit in sunlight. They tried to bind you through pity, wrap you in guilt, rewrite your sense of worth through neglect and manipulation. They thought if they made you feel unlovable, you'd stop loving yourself. But your heart didn't fold, it caught fire. You saw through the performance, through the hollow hugs and empty eyes. You stayed soft without becoming stupid. That's what saved you. Your heart didn't just survive, it became your shield. Where they expected wounds, they found wisdom. Where they aimed to plant bitterness, you grew boundaries. And that terrified them, because a heart that stays light in a world trying to break it is untouchable. They wanted your emotional collapse. Instead, they witnessed your sacred clarity. You didn't close your heart, you elevated it. You learned to love from distance, to forgive without returning, to bless and block in the same breath. Now comes the divine weight scale. Every ritual they cast, every betrayal they orchestrated, every lie they breathed, balanced against your innocence. The universe doesn't forget. The Most High doesn't play favorites, but it does play fair. And their hearts, heavy, yours, light as a feather. You didn't retaliate. You didn't curse them back. You just kept your soul clean while theirs drowned in filth. That's why the judgment is hitting them hard and swift. Your heart was the one thing they thought they could break, but it turned out to be the one thing that couldn't be touched. That's why you're still standing. That's why they're unraveling. Before you knew the trap was set, they already saw it forming. Your ancestors didn't flinch. They stood tall in realms unseen, watching every spell, every setup, every serpent move with ancient eyes. These weren't passive spirits whispering love and light. These were warriors, guardians, bloodline generals who refused to let you become a casualty. They blocked bullets you didn't even see coming. They rearranged timelines to pull you out of pits you didn't know you were falling into. When you felt a sudden urge to leave, to ghost, to go quiet, that was them, snatching you out before the blade could touch skin. They were never new to this. Your lineage is trained in survival and sanctity. These ancestors weren't just connected to you, they were assigned to you. You carry sacred blood, divine contracts, and they knew exactly what was at stake. They watched as the town wrapped you in ritual, as fake friends circled like wolves in sheep's clothing. And when the final spell was cast, they laughed, because it was never going to work. Every altar raised against you was met with divine fire. Every jar buried in your name shattered in spiritual flames, and then the archangels stepped in. Gabriel sounded the trumpet, not just as a warning, but as judgment. Your enemies woke up hearing ringing that wouldn't stop. Dreams interrupted, peace shattered. Gabriel announced it. This one is marked, this one carries light, and that truth echoed across every dimension they tried to twist. Michael unsheathed the sword. Every time they attacked your joy, your voice, your breath, he was there, defending you with divine aggression, cutting cords they tried to bind, closing portals they thought would swallow you. The spiritual battlefield burned with his presence. Raphael came not with vengeance, but with balm. Every heartbreak they tried to weaponize, Raphael healed. Every betrayal that tried to scar you, he sealed. Every attempt to turn your softness against you, he reversed. Because healing isn't passive, it's power. Raphael made sure your wounds turned into weapons, not weaknesses. Together, your spiritual team stood around you like a fortress. They didn't just protect, you were never alone. They were whispering strategy, redirecting your steps, illuminating the truth even when you couldn't see it. That strange dream, that gut feeling, that sudden pull to disconnect from someone. All protection. The truth is, they were never fighting you. They were fighting your backing. And your backing, divine, ancient, untouchable. You didn't survive by chance. You were carried, covered, and crowned. Envy was the true curse, and they cast it on themselves. They tried to curse you, hex you, humble you, but the only spell that truly stuck was the one their jealousy conjured. It bloomed like rot beneath their skin, whispered into their minds that you didn't deserve your gifts, your peace, your freedom. It made them sick, and the more they fixated on you, the more their own lives unraveled. They didn't just want you to fall, they needed it, because your rise exposed everything they pretended not to feel. Jealousy turned them into monsters. Quiet, smiling, well-dressed monsters. The kind that light candles in secret and pray for your ruin in tongues they barely understand. But you didn't even have to lift a finger. Because the backlash came, swiftly. The very spell work they sent is devouring them from the inside out. Their money dried up, their minds fractured, their relationships imploded. They blame you, of course, but not because you harmed them. You didn't even speak on them. You just lived, and that to them was the ultimate betrayal. You didn't expose them with your mouth. You did it with your survival, your joy, your stillness. They hoped you'd rage, retaliate, stoop to their level. Instead, you glowed, you healed, you kept moving forward while they stayed obsessed. You became the mirror they couldn't look into without crumbling. They cast spell after spell, hoping something would stick, but every ritual became a rope around their own neck. And still, they keep casting. Still reaching, still watching, still unraveling. The city is eating itself now. You're not the villain, they are. And the shame is too loud for them to ignore. Their own covens laugh behind closed doors. Their mentors avoid them. Karma doesn't just knock, it rearranges. Their downfall isn't coming, it's already here. And you didn't need revenge. You had resilience. You didn't need proof. You were the proof. Their envy poisoned everything around them, but it only made your light more blinding. That's the curse they'll never shake, wanting your downfall more than their own healing. This war was never just about you. It was about the blood that flows through you, the codes you carry, the contracts you never signed but were born into. Your bloodline is divine, threaded with prophecy, purpose, protection, and that's what made you a target. You didn't walk into a city. You walked into a battlefield disguised as a neighborhood. A spiritual war was already raging before. You even knew your own name, and your presence was a disruption to generational agreements made in silence. They weren't just coming for your mind, they were trying to hijack your lineage. Their line was in debt, deep, ancestral, unpaid. So they tried to plug into yours, steal your grace, inherit your favor, tap into your spiritual inheritance through proximity, manipulation, even blood rituals. But every attempt they made only exposed them further. You weren't meant to blend, you were meant to stand out. Every false family member, every spiritual assassin disguised as a friend was drawn not to you, but to what lives in your DNA. They saw your light as currency. They wanted access, but the divine covered you. Every attack only amplified your anointing. Every plot sharpened your discernment. What was meant to destroy you activated your inheritance. They didn't realize that trying to curse you would put their own line under judgment. And now their bloodline is unraveling. The sickness they sent is in their homes. The confusion they prayed over you now runs through their children. Their elders are restless. Their ancestors are silent. Because you weren't just a person, you were a test, sent by heaven, carrying light codes they were never supposed to touch. And they failed. They chose envy over reverence, control over collaboration, darkness over accountability. And that choice cursed them. You didn't fight back, you stood firm. And the war was won not through violence, but through legacy, through endurance, through divine identity. This is a war they'll never win, because it's not about ego. It's not even about you. It's about who sent you. They say you got lucky, that it was coincidence, that somehow you just slipped through the cracks, but you know better. It wasn't chance. It was strategy. It was obedience. It was divine timing that moved mountains, rerouted storms, and whispered instructions when the world got too loud. You didn't stumble out of the fire, you were guided. Your escape wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated by the Most High, down to the very breath you took when the final trap was being laid. You were the test. The city was being watched. Heaven placed a chosen one in the middle of a cursed land to see what they would do, and they failed gloriously. They betrayed a divine guest, turned a sacred opportunity into a spectacle of hate and envy, and now they are accountable. You didn't just escape. You were removed, marked, pulled from their grip by hands they couldn't see. While they mocked, plotted, and prophesied your end, the divine was writing your next chapter in ink they'll never touch. It wasn't luck, it was liberation. Their rage is not your concern, it's your confirmation, proof that your freedom struck a nerve so deep it rewired the entire illusion they built. You don't owe them a response. You don't owe them your energy. Karma has already begun its work, and the divine doesn't miss. The same force that walked you out of a cursed city is still guiding your every step. You're not running, you're rising, and no ritual, no lie, no whispered threat can touch what God already called sacred. They can keep talking, keep casting, keep watching, but you're already gone, already chosen, already crowned, and the most dangerous thing you could ever do was survive and shine.